Alright, so once you've got your data entered into Logger Pro, so you have the low incline wheel and the high incline wheel, now it's time to make graphs. And you're not going to put the graph on top of your data table, so you need to make a new page in the file. So up here in the menu, there's a page menu, and you're just going to hit Add Page. You're going to leave it as blank. I'm going to title this one Position versus Time Graph, and then hit OK, and it gives you a blank page. Now you just need to insert a graph into that page, so you go to the Insert menu, select Graph, and it will give you a graph that you really don't need at all. So we just need to change that graph up. If you double click on the graph, it'll give you all the options that you need. The first thing we want to do is go to Graph Options, and the graph that we want is a position versus time graph. And of all these boxes here, literally none of them need to be checked except for point and symbols. Point and symbols is it will make the points on the graph larger. And in the data table, you can select what kind of point symbols you want. In the axes options up here, you've got options for the y-axis and options for the x-axis. In this class, you're almost never going to use the right y-axis. But on the y-axis, we want position for both the low incline and the high incline wheel. So you're going to select the checkbox for position here. And then if you scroll down, you want to uncheck that. You want to turn this down so you can see the high incline choices and click position for the high incline as well. Make sure that this scaling reads auto scale from 0. And then we want the clock reading and also auto scale from 0. We hit OK, and we should have two nice curved graphs. And now we need to put a curve on that graph. This is done through the Analyze menu. You'll put a curve fit there. Kind of a shortcut, you can click this button right there, and that does the same thing. So we'll go to the Analyze Curve Fit, and you have to do this for one data set at a time. So I'll do the low incline first, and I'm going to hit quadratic will work. Also the power fit will work. And then you hit try fit. If it gives you an error message, usually the error message says something like select more points, in which case you just drag across here and hit try fit and it should work. Okay. So after I've hit try fit and see some numbers in there, I'll hit OK. And there you'll see what I've got. These brackets can be used to kind of change the range that you're using for the data. So I can only use all of it. There we go. Then I'm going to do the same thing for the high incline wheel. I can push that button there. High incline, power fit, try it, and OK. And there we go. The next graph I'm going to make, I can linearize this graph by graphing the position versus the time squared. So I'm going to add a page. It's blank. Position versus squared. And again, I can insert a graph, make the graph nice and big, double click on the graph, go to the graph options, make sure that I put a title on the graph, point symbols is selected, I want position from both data sets. Auto scale from 0, and this time I want to select time squared. Beats squared. Hit OK, and there we are. For this graph, you can see that this is now linearized, more or less, and I can analyze it by going linear fit and then selecting both of these and hitting OK. That's one way to do it. Another thing you can see is there's a small y-intercept involved in each of these, probably from inaccuracies in our data collection. But if you go to curve fit, you can actually select the proportional fit, and that will force the best fit line to go through the origin of the graph. So either option is fine for this lab. Proportional fit. Kind of drag that box so it's not in the way. And the last graph that we need to make is a velocity versus time graph. So I'm going to add a page. And insert graph. And remember, for these graphs, for the velocity versus time graph, the velocity you calculated is an average velocity, so you have to graph it with the middle time column that you calculated. So here's my average velocity on my y-axis. From both data sets, auto scale from 0. And I want to make sure that I use the middle time, auto scale from 0. Title the graph. Make sure the point symbols is selected, hit OK. And that looks great. And then I'll put a couple of linear fits on this as well. And again, linear fit is fine. Proportional fit might look better. Okay, and do make sure that these brackets go, across the data range that you want, that you're not skipping some points. Where that comes in handy is if some of you had wheels where the last few data points were really off, and you can take this right bracket and kind of scooch in a little bit if it makes the curve or the line look more like it's representative of what your wheel is doing for the most part of the journey. And then make sure you save, and there's your graphs. Now to print, there's a couple tricks. First of all, go to the page setup and make sure that you are in landscape mode. Next, when you're printing your data table, there's kind of a couple disadvantages. You can play with the size so that you can get all the data to fit, and then go to the File menu, hit Print, but only print page 1. Also, in this printing options, put your name on there because everyone's graphs are going to look fairly similar. So make sure your name is in that options box so it shows up in the footer down here. To print the data table, you usually just print from page 1 to 1 when you've got it looking the way you want it to. If you select Print Data Table, then you'll see, I don't know if you can see it from the preview, but it even warns you that you're going to get 4 pages of data because it spaces it out like this, which looks terrible. So just print page 1 will be fine. When you get to the graphs, you want to get to the page with the graph that you want and hit File, Print Graph. And that will make it look good. A lot of times if you hit Print, for some weird reason, Logger Pro tends to cut off all of these axes down here. So if you hit Print Graph, you get a much better result from your printing. If you're in my class and nothing is turned in printed, then what you should do is just take the graph and take the data table, whatever, copy it, and then paste it into your Google Docs to turn in to me electronically. And that's how you make graphs.